I have done my Elden Ring homework, and today we're gonna take a seat back. We're gonna chill. We're gonna analyze, visualize, slow down, and appreciate all of the craziest attacks from the game's biggest, baddest, jankest, craziest enemies in the base game. No DLC spoilers. If you've played the game and have no clue what you're supposed to be dodging, take damage and have no idea how, or can't tell what the boss is doing because the camera is right up where the sun don't shine, this video is for you. This is Elden Ring like you've never seen before. Let's do it. We'll start off with a nice appetizer of jank. We all know the old Godskin Apostle, but have you ever noticed this on his big rotating attack? Did you catch it? Watch it here. Now, obviously, this must be from an early build of the game, or this animation software I'm using is bugged. Surely, there is no way that this is actually in the game in 2024.
Oh my goodness!
For one frame, an incorrect bone value is set on a bone rotation, and it has never been noticed. The hitbox does come with it, so who knows, maybe someone somewhere has gotten clipped during a jumping attack. If that person was you, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Beyond that, this guy has one of the weirdest little disconnected hitboxes on this sword pullback attack specifically. Why is it a tiny little ball? Why is it not at the end of the sword at least? Why is it so cute? I don't have all the answers. I'm sorry. All right. Next up is a fan favorite, Starscourge Radahn. Most people know you can run to the side to avoid his arrows, but how close are you to being hit? Very close. His attacks are some of the most fun to watch as he just carpet bombs the whole landscape in front of you, making the US military jealous. It's kind of funny how the hitboxes and their corresponding arrows spawn separately, and then you wonder if they're gonna find each other before it's too late, and then they always do. I'm sorry, it gets me every time. His arrow shotgun, also pretty fun. I always find it interesting why they place hitboxes for projectiles where they do. Like here they are at the tip, but later in the video with bosses like Margit, they are nowhere close. Gotcha. Pussy. No, I'm just kidding. But once you do get close to him, there is something weird about his sword hitboxes. The sword is way outside the hitbox. It's so curved that it looks ridiculous and is barely even functional. You put that in my medical records, Dr. Jennings. What the hell? Anyway, you could absolutely be getting hit physically by this sword and not actually be taking damage. And before you say, oh, it's a curved sword, it can't be perfect. What about this guy? I don't know. Apparently the intern was working on Radahn's sword that day, I guess. And yes, it's also wiggity whack on his second phase sword as well. But what's weirder than that is this. So according to the lore, Radahn is moving the horse with him with gravity magic. Is that really where you want to put the horse there, General? What's going on with that hoof? Huh? Explain this, Vatya. What does the lore say about this? Anyway, here's what everyone came to see. He's a literal comet descending from the sky, but still swings the sword. What a tryhard. Royal Revenant. This may be the most hated enemy in Elden Ring, and for one specific reason, because of this move in particular. This controller breaking attack runs for a continuous 59 frames of twisting, whirling death. And I don't think those random spinning arms and torso are on purpose. There is so much lightning speed movement going on in this attack, it must have been a nightmare to animate. You can even see it happening in-game. But what's really scary is how oppressive this enemy is. Watch these 3 attacks in sequence. You have a jump attack, into a lunge attack, then straight into the 59 frame psycho mauling attack. To make things more interesting, Its poison spit attack has some nasty range, coating a massive area. But luckily, the poison effect hitbox disappears a little before the actual poisonous gas, just in time for you to get mauled to death again, baby. Okay, but it's not all bad for you. The hitboxes on this enemy are actually pretty merciful, many not even extending past the model. Can you imagine if this thing was this aggressive and had crazy range? Ugh. No. And you'll notice this enemy has a hard time sticking to the player. This enemy would be the actual final boss if it had the hitbox range of other bosses and enemies in the game and use the boost root motion function that Malenia does, but we'll get to her insanity later. Also, if you're liking the video, consider subscribing, and a like, comment goes a long way for a small channel. Okay, I'm sorry. Back to the video. Next up in our list of goofy goobers is the intergalactic anal bead himself, Astel. His projectile attack, although very intimidating visually, is actually a relatively small ball. It's actually shocking that anyone manages to even get hit by this. Oh, Jesus. Okay, I get it. It's a hard game. But despite how massive his arena is, it's funny to watch all the adjustments that are made to allow for this massive tail to be used at range. Hard to notice this stuff when you're just a little guy staring up at a massive boss. But believe it or not, when in doubt, you can kind of just stand there, living your best life, unbothered. The better you get at fighting a boss, the less effort you put into avoiding attacks. Well, maybe not exactly just stand there the whole time, you get what I mean. A couple interesting things I noticed in this attack explosion is that it doesn't follow in a sweeping line like you'd think it would. It starts on one side and then starts on the other side and then meets in the middle. So I guess go through a little off center if you want to run through. Also, his grab attack is super merciful. It barely has any active frames, starting only once the jaws are almost entirely closed, and it doesn't really have that much range. So if you find yourself in here, you got yourself to blame there, champ. A good chunk of his attacks are actually fairly well telegraphed, I think, like this little snake rattle thing for his tail stab. I think the beef for this boss in particular comes because of how annoying he is to hit as a melee player, which I get it. But all right, now let's finish this guy with the attack that everybody wants to see. Despite whether you love or hate this boss, we can all agree he looks cool as shit. Ulcerated Tree Spirit. This thing has its name because I get an ulcer just by looking at it. Kids, you really shouldn't hate, but oh my God, what is this thing? There is just so much excess movement, and it feels like anything could happen at any time, so your best bet is just to spam attacks and rolls and hope for the best. Like for this attack, it looks like it's coming down for a bite, but then the hands come flying over while the head is just twisting back like an exorcism. Or this one. Look at how much excess movement there is just for a spinning tail attack. And of course, there's plenty of whoopsie whirly dirlies on this bad boy too. And I know people are wanting like a revelatory breakdown on this enemy that just makes it make sense, but I honestly don't have anything else to show you for this. It really is just a bunch of bizarre squirming and then a random appendage is chosen to damage you. You aren't crazy. This guy, doo-doo ass, big time. Moving on. Margit. Margit is particularly interesting to me because he shows the changes FromSoft has made over almost 2 decades since Dark Souls. I did a video detailing the 4 jankest enemies in Dark Souls, which you can find on this channel. But a big point of discussion was slam attacks lasting a long time after hitting the ground. But you'll notice Margit's slam attacks disappear as soon as it hits the ground, even though debris is still flying. Also, his dagger attack includes a hitbox surrounding his shoulder. Why? Well, because if you don't, players can just push into the boss and be in a safe zone, like Quelaag still to this day. But honestly, Margit's sword hitbox is actually ginormous at times. This is how big I tell her it is. This is how big it actually is. You know what I mean, boys? Come on. But his golden arrows give you some time to roll late, I guess, because the hitbox is nowhere near the point. Mohg. All right, so he's got his usual throwing blood attack, but you'll notice sometimes the hitbox doesn't exactly line up with the fire on the ground. You'd be tempted to just walk between flames, but probably best to just roll through it to play it safe, because it's not exactly what you're seeing visually. His claw attack also comes out differently than I thought. This attack got me so many times, because if you roll when he does this scratch, chances are you're gonna get caught once the real hitbox happens, the explosion. Also, a lot of people know you can kind of hit him in the back while this attack goes off. I always thought it was because the hitbox was some kind of semicircle, but no, it's just because he pulls it down in front of him, making it so you can sneak in a hit behind if you have a long enough weapon. Oh, and I didn't notice in the last shot, but that little orb of death floating towards you is kind of adorable. Anyway, look how stupid we looked when we first tried to roll through his, mid-fight nihil attack. How are you gonna roll through a hitbox when you are the hitbox? I thought it was gonna come from the boss and just be unavoidable due to its size and frame time, but no, it just sticks to you like glue. Speaking of glue, he really does fling his gooey flames everywhere in phase 2, and I mean everywhere. A lot of people had questions about his running stab, which is nutty in phase 2. A solid 18 frames, including his charging shoulder and his entire weapon. Throw in some goop and you've got yourself some real pain. And notice he could do it when he's right on you. It's not always a mid to long range option. And of course, there's a variation with an explosion at the end. It wouldn't be Elden Ring if there wasn't just explosions happening. So good luck. I just panic roll to the side too, and sometimes it worked. Dragonlord Placidusax. Oh, you wanted hitboxes? Here's your hitboxes. Now, this is the perspective any sane human fights this boss from. Smacking the tail from behind, avoiding every attack you can from the front. So it's interesting to see what is actually happening up front. Death. A lot of death is happening up front, some of which can make it to the back. Some of his attacks do have a hard time sticking to the Model 2 though, this one in particular. And you'll notice the hitboxes for these claw attacks are significantly ahead of the actual claws. So roll early on this one. Also, I'm very proud of this shot. It's pretty freaking cool. You can see the hitbox of the explosion, but the roll is happening through the explosion, so he doesn't take damage. It's just cool. I thought you guys would like it. It's okay if you don't. I can't imagine the frustration of this dragon blasting out insane lightning attacks, some covering a football field, and then the tiny little rat man that he's trying to squash presses B at the right moment, and he's like, damn it, he rolled! As frustrating and bullshit as bosses can be in this game, remember, you are the cheapest, jankest thing in this entire game. But I will say it must be nice to be so massive that you don't even have to aim your swing and you still hit the target. All right, to finish this one, here's that insane laser death attack. Radagon and Elden Beast. The main interesting thing about Radagon is the fact that he has a kind of bizarre parry possibility. This flying attack right here, he can be parried. I have no clue if anyone ever has parried him on this move or how you'd even get that to go off. Technically, yeah, he can be parried when he's in the air flying at you. Also, his grab attack is not messing around. Boy has some range on them fingertips. But that's about it for him. But Elden Beast, however, has a lot of interesting stuff. First off, is anyone else really off-put seeing that he has legs? I do not like it. He can swim and fly. Why does he need legs, Miyazaki? Oh, no, I see why. What also finally makes sense to me is that in the beginning of that fight, you can just smack him a ton, and even though the flames are definitely hitting you, you just don't take damage. So the flames are extending way past where the actual last hitboxes are. So you are even safer than you think when you're close to him at the beginning of that fight. Same thing later in the fight, actually. Rolling isn't really all that necessary on the flames edges. This boss in particular feels really intimidating the first fight, but he's actually really reasonable. Like, look how tiny these little hitboxes are. Oh, they're so teeny tiny. But it's a good thing that they're teeny tiny because it makes dodging this barrage manageable. They did not paint with broad strokes on this one. These little things have to exactly hit you for the attack to register. So it looks terrifying, but you just do this and you're good to go. But what they didn't get precise was this fan favorite attack. I really don't know what to tell you with this one. Thank God they have short range and dissipate, but man, this attack is one of the more annoying ones to deal with in this entire game. But this boss is like a toxic relationship. God, she hurts me so bad, and she reels me back in with stuff like this. I always loved this attack. It's all about the spectacle, and it knows it. The hitboxes are super forgiving, and it's just fun to run through the blast zone like an action movie. I also love that his body isn't just constantly a giant moving hitbox like other bosses in the game. This attack has his whole body and tail swinging around, but it's just about dodging the sword. I like it. The final funny quirk is the hitbox disappears on this swing for one frame. This one is clearly intentional. It allows the universe to give you a small bit of good luck karma. Your coworker farted, but you took the blame for it. You get home from work and you get lucky with this frame and you didn't get hit when you should have. It all comes back around, boys. Fire Giant. I just love watching this attack go off. It's like eye candy. Little orbs falling, creating little spawn points that then expand. It's just satisfying to watch. And for some reason, it's a little Christmassy. I don't know why. I'm not quite sure why the little spawn orbs fall at different speeds because they spawn at the same time from above. It makes it so the hitboxes spawn one after another in a line as opposed to all at once. Doesn't really make much difference because of how fast it happens, but it is more satisfying to watch. His roll through hitboxes are a little quirky too. He literally headbutts the player, but nothing happens until the hitbox appears later. I'm not complaining though. This boss does not need any more giant hitboxes. Speaking of giant hitboxes, the trigger range of the fireball expands as it's formed, so it won't just insta explode if you're near its spawn point immediately. I've noticed that whenever I'm playing that I'm just panic rolling as soon as that thing spawns, but you actually take your time and it just kind of expands. The rest of his fire attacks are super fun too. I can't think of any other fire hitboxes that raise into the sky like that in the game. Also, shout out to Gary, because he ate that shot to the face and basically every other shot in this entire video. Also, I've always wondered what happened to his shield in phase 2. Apparently it's still in his hand. They just make it intangible and invisible, but yeah, it's still there on the animations. The more you know. All right, before we tackle the final big one, Malenia, here are 8 honorable mentions I found interesting. Fallen Star Beast's tail going back looks a little odd. Draconic Tree Sentinel. Almost every attack can be parried, even this jumping attack, and it looks completely insane. How this causes a giant man on a horse in gold armor swinging a dragon's great claw to stop in their tracks is just very funny to me. Must be in the wrist, I guess. Godric. Playing with hitboxes on in slow motion turns a lot of his attacks into like fun little mini games. Feels like you're in the Matrix. I definitely recommend getting some mods together and trying this out yourself. Rykard. The scale of this attack is insane. I mean, just look at the... Wait a minute. To be this beautiful in death, she must have been something else in life. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen again. Deathrite Bird. This may be the only instance of a hitbox specifically for a butt, which is an odd choice because this thing is really lacking in what it's packing. Also, I always thought that the arrow attack from the Deathrite Bird was arrows flying in the sky and then coming down, but apparently everything is a lie and they are just spawning above your head. Magma Worm. A lot of his charging attacks have his body as a hitbox, but not the sword that he's shoving around. I also have never seen this attack in-game, but it's badass. Rune Bear. For as notorious as this enemy is, the hitbox lengths themselves are actually really chill. It's really a matter of the size of the hitboxes and how liberally they are applied. He is just a torpedo of death half the time. Maliketh. The generative hitboxes on his attacks just look really weird. Similar hitboxes just look like this. Maliketh's attack causes a status effect to the player, but so do poison attacks, and we've seen them already not look like this. Only place I've found this kind of hitboxes is here, so I don't know. Malenia. All right, buckle up. This is the big one. Most of her fight is really nothing out of the norm of a usual aggressive swordy fight. Her sword has average hitboxes, nothing particularly challenging, and then what surprised me most about this is the swirling sword slashes don't always correlate to whether or not an AoE attack is happening, particularly in her second combo. They just kind of add the AoE hitbox periodically. It looks wild in game, but the event graph is actually even wilder. See all these attack events, one after the other? Remember, 13 frames of roll invincibility is what most players are working with when they go into this fight. The first set of attacks in this Waterfowl Dance is 34 frames long, making it literally impossible for you to successfully roll through it, followed by a smaller second phase of 11 frames, and then a final third phase of another 33 frames, not counting the little AoE attack at the end. So for veteran players, if you can't roll through it, the next try is to roll around it or roll away from it. Well, that's where this little beauty comes in, Boost Root Motion. This allows her to essentially cheat her position and burst towards you faster than she would normally be able to. And you can see it's used liberally throughout the whole combo. So to recap, you have a single move from a boss that has the damage output to one-shot a player if they're caught in it. Its attack cadence doesn't allow time for a player to successfully use the roll mechanic to avoid damage, and also allows the boss to effectively stick to the player like glue as they unsuccessfully attempt to roll away or around their oncoming doom. So what the hell are you supposed to do?
You're right. I give up.
Well, the key to all this is abusing the boost root motion that she uses. Malenia can only turn at a certain maximum rate. And if she's boosting towards you, if you position yourself correctly, she'll simply overshoot. Like this. Shout out to Inner Astel for the example because I have spent way too much time on this video already and I did not want to master dodging this attack for the video. I'm sorry. People can argue in the comments on whether this attack helps or hurts the experience of fighting Malenia. Me personally, I could do without it. But at the end of the day, Elden Ring is a masterclass in game development and design, and the flaws are such small pebbles in just the mountain of the game's success. The next video is covering the Elden Ring DLC, so subscribe to see more. After that is Dark Souls 2, but let me know what else you want to see. Please leave a like and a comment, really helps videos coming from small channels especially. I've also been making my 69-year-old dad play Dark Souls as his first video game ever on Saturdays. It's live, it's going terrible, it's a lot of fun. We've got a lot of Souls stuff on the channel, so check it out. But as always, thanks for watching.